I grabbed my tote and stood when the nurse called us back, even though my knees didn't want to cooperate. The hallway smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee, the same as every other visit. We were at Ridgeview Internal Medicine, the clinic we'd been coming to for years, and I already knew the routine sign in sit down. Don't ask too many questions. The doctor didn't sit right away. He skimmed the chart, frowned, then looked at me instead of her. "Can I speak with you for a moment?" he asked. His voice wasn't dramatic. That's what scared me. In the corner of the room, he lowered his tone. "Her blood work is clean," he said. "No markers. No active prescriptions. There's no medical reason she should be bedridden." He paused like he was choosing words carefully. "She's healthy." My fingers dug into the fabric of my tote until the handles bit into my palms. I didn't let go. I nodded like I understood, even though my ears were ringing. 5 years. I thought about the bills, the nights, the excuses I'd made for her when people asked questions. The nurse, Lena, stepped back in to print something. She glanced at the doctor and then at me. "Do you want the full file emailed?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "For the insurance folder." I watched the printer hum. Paper slid out. Real paper. Real words. I asked for copies, and no one argued. If this was family, why did everything fall apart the moment I asked for facts? If she was that sick, why was there nothing to treat? I smiled at the doctor on the way out. I even thanked him. That part makes me sick now. To anyone listening, what would you do if someone told you the last 5 years of your life were built on nothing solid? In the car, I sat for a minute with the engine off. I told myself I'd probably misunderstood. I told myself I was cruel for even doubting her. I hated how quickly I reached for excuses instead of anger. I hated the way I stayed quiet. I drove home without calling anyone, carried the folder inside, and opened it at the kitchen table because once I started reading, there was no going back. I wiped down the kitchen counter again, even though it was already clean. The Lysol smell was sharp. Maybe that's why my eyes stung. He leaned against the doorway, arms folded. "Mom?" "She's scared," he said, like he was letting me in on a secret. "Do you know what stress does to the body? It wasn't a fight. That's what made it worse." He said it softly, like he was helping me be a better person. I nodded. I didn't say I'd just spent 2 hours highlighting a medical file with 0 prescriptions and no diagnosis passed. April 2022. Marcus, our longtime neighbor, knocked to drop off the power bill he picked up by mistake. He looked at me for a second too long. "You good?" I lied. "Yeah, just tired." I poured water. I didn't drink. Kept wiping the same spot. He kept going. "She hasn't felt safe in her own skin for years," he said. "You know how trauma works." I didn't answer. But in my head, if she's that fragile, how's she arguing with customer service at 1 a.m.? If you believe her, why do you need me to? I wanted to defend myself, but the guilt came so quietly. Not from cruelty, from concern. Like I was the one hurting her just for asking. When he left the kitchen, I went back to my laptop and opened the PDF. Every page told the same story. No active illness, no prescriptions, just routine checkups and exaggerated symptoms. I highlighted everything in yellow, like proof would protect me from shame. I could hear them in the living room, laughing at something on the TV. She wasn't groaning or asking for pillows. I fell back into roles too fast, hostess, mother, sponsor. Even now, I caught myself wiping the counter again instead of speaking up. I stayed quiet, like silence could fix what truth would only expose. I told him I needed to lie down. But I didn't. I watched. I laid still under the blanket, breathing slow. The hallway nightlight flickered once. I kept my eyes on the ceiling. My phone was charging face down on the nightstand, sound off. I didn't want distractions. I wanted confirmation. At exactly 3:12 a.m., I heard her door creak. Her footsteps were quiet, but not like someone weak. No cane, no stumbling, just the soft brush of slippers on the floor. She didn't groan like she usually did when standing. She walked smooth straight to the kitchen. Then her voice. Low. The idiot still thinks I'm bedridden. My ears rang. I stayed completely still. I didn't blink. Just counted the seconds. I waited until I heard her door close again. Then I picked up my phone and typed it out 3:12 a.m. The idiot still thinks I'm bedridden. I emailed it to myself, subject line memo. Save. Timestamp included. The second betrayal isn't the lie. It's the performance. The assumption you'll never catch on. The next morning, I made coffee and scrambled eggs like I always do. She didn't show up to eat, said her back hurt. My son said nothing. Just scrolled on his phone. Monica, the cashier at the gas station, handed me a receipt that morning. You're up early, she said. I said couldn't sleep. She smiled. You okay? Not really. But I nodded anyway. If she's bedridden, why is she walking around at 3 a.m.? If it's stress, why does her voice sound smug, not scared? The next morning, I made breakfast like usual. Then I called someone I trusted. I signed my name at the front desk of Ridgeview Internal Medicine, the old clinic we used before everything got complicated. My hand shook enough that the pen scratched the paper. I blamed the cheap ink, but it wasn't that. The waiting room looked smaller than I remembered. Same chairs, same faded posters about blood pressure. I told the receptionist I was picking up old records. She nodded like it happened all the time. I didn't expect to see anyone I knew. But when I turned toward the hallway, Janice, a retired nurse I recognized from years ago, stopped short. She stared at me, then smiled slowly. You're her mother-in-law, she said. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice yet. Janice lowered her tone. She wasn't bedridden back then, she said. Used to flirt with the delivery guy. Wore heels once. I felt heat rise in my face. My fingers curled into my palm. I didn't interrupt. I just let her talk. She complained a lot, Janice added, but she walked fine. Always did. She paused. You want me to put that in writing? Yes, I said too fast. Then softer. Just facts. She nodded. Just facts. No drama. While she stepped away to grab a form, I stood there staring at the wall. If she was that sick, why did staff remember her as mobile? If this was all stress, why did no one treat her for it? It's strange how other people always saw what you refused to admit. Janice came back with a short statement. Dates. Observations. No opinions. She signed it and handed it to me like it weighed something. I'm sorry, she said. I wanted to tell her it wasn't her fault, but part of me knew it was mine. I should have asked questions years ago. I should have noticed the gaps the way the stories changed, depending on who was listening. I wanted so badly to believe her that I stopped trusting my own eyes. I thanked Janice and folded the paper carefully, like it mattered. It did. I walked out without stopping at the desk again, got in my car, and drove straight to the storage unit. I opened box 7 from the back shelf. Dust clung to the plastic lid. The inside smelled like old paper and dryer sheets. I flipped through file folders, half looking, until I saw the red tab marked Medical. 2020. That's when I found it. Dated July 18th, 2020. My signature, her name. A notarized power of attorney form giving her temporary control while I was in the hospital with the flu. I'd barely remembered signing it. My knees didn't give out, but I leaned hard against the metal wall. It was nearly 80 degrees outside, but I felt cold. She'd had this paper for years. I never revoked it. If you trust someone so much you hand them control of your accounts, is it really fraud or just naivety? I pulled out my phone and scanned the form, hands shaking. Subject line, undo this. Sent it straight to Martin, my estate lawyer. Then I sat on the cement floor and stared at the closed box. I'd given her power. She hadn't stolen it. She just used it. Myra, the woman renting the unit next to mine, opened her roll-up door and glanced over. "You okay?" I nodded. "Just organizing." She gave a sympathetic look. "Paperwork's always heavier than it looks." I almost laughed. Almost. If she's bedridden, why does she have access to legal forms? If I'm family, why wasn't I told she still had signing rights? Sometimes the worst trap is the one you helped build out of love, out of fear, out of trust. I should have double-checked. I should have made the authority temporary. I should have followed up after I got better. But I was tired, and I thought keeping peace was more important. And in the end, staying quiet felt safer than starting a fight. I shut the box and slid it back onto the shelf. Locked the unit. Got in the car. The lawyer didn't reply right away, but someone else did. It was 9:26 a.m. when the call came from my local bank branch. I was halfway through folding laundry when I saw the number. "This is Erica from Eastbrook First," she said. "Are you authorizing a $42,000 transfer to Future Nest Holdings?" I sat down on the edge of the bed. "No, I'm not." There was a pause. "Then we're freezing the request immediately." I didn't speak. I just stared at the blue fitted sheet in my lap like it might give me answers. Then I picked the phone up again. "Erica, I want to see everything. Every transaction from the past year. No summaries." I drove to the branch in silence. Inside, they handed me a printed log. 4 withdrawals all over $15,000, spaced out, tucked between my routine bills and gifts. I'd missed them, or I hadn't wanted to see them. If your bedridden daughter-in-law has time to set up shell companies, who exactly is being taken care of? Erica the banker leaned in gently. "People get busy. That's what scammers count on." "I wasn't busy," I said. "Just stupid." She didn't correct me. She just nodded. I signed the freeze form and added a fraud alert. My pen scraped hard against the paper. She offered me water. I said no. How many times did I say yes without looking? How many forms did I sign just to get them off my back? Theft is easy when it wears the mask of caretaking. I'd wanted to believe they needed help. But deep down, I think I knew they wanted access more than support. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken. Made excuses for them in my head. Whispered shame instead of asking real questions. She tried calling me that night. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent one line. At 8:44 a.m. on a Thursday, the text came through. "All finances go through me now. No exceptions." I stared at the screen. Less than 2 minutes later, my son added, "You're being hostile. You'll push us away." I reread it twice. Then I deleted the thread. Not out of peace, but because I knew if I kept it, I'd start replying emotionally. And I wanted clean hands when I acted. I opened my laptop and emailed the lawyer. Subject, POA revocation, I wrote. "Please bring the amendment to Friday's meeting. Full override. I want everything under my control again. If they can call it family while cashing you out, is it still family or just business with guilt trips?" I scheduled a bank appointment for noon. Full re-verification, new passwords, hard revocation of every prior account tie. That afternoon, I went to the garage to find my old lockbox. Inside were passbooks, documents, and a handwritten note my husband once left me about always having one safe copy. I should have done this sooner. But I didn't want to see myself as someone who could be used. Camille, my neighbor, peeked over the fence while I was loading files into the car. "Everything all right?" I forced a smile. "Just organizing old paperwork." She nodded. "Smart. Paper remembers better than people. I used to be the kind of woman who'd offer coffee and excuses. They're just stressed. It's a tough season. But no one accidentally moves $42,000. I kept minimizing. Told myself it's not that big. Clung to hope like it could undo theft. The moment you reclaim your life, they call you cold? They didn't reply. But they showed up right where I hoped they would. I walked into Eastbrook First Bank Conference Room B, and they were already there. My son was leaning forward, talking fast. My daughter-in-law sat with her hands folded, nodding like this was routine. A manila folder lay open between them. I didn't sit. I stood behind the empty chair and watched them fidget when they noticed me. My son's voice dropped. Hers went quiet. "Mom, we were just clarifying paperwork," he said. "If it's just paperwork, why does it need to be rushed? If it's family, why didn't anyone tell me?" "David." The senior account manager looked at me and said, "We were reviewing a pending property transfer." That was it. One line. Neutral. I set my sealed folder on the table and slid it toward him. "Please add this to the file," I said. Inside were the medical report, the nurse's statement, the power of attorney revocation, and my email memo. 3:12 a.m. Exact words. No speeches, no edits, just paper. David opened it. His eyebrows lifted once. He didn't look at them again. "We'll pause all actions pending review," he said. My daughter-in-law laughed sharp and quick. "This is a misunderstanding. If she's bedridden, why does she need a property transfer? If I'm hostile, why am I the only one bringing documents? You don't need to raise your voice when the documents speak louder than you ever could." My son tried again. "You didn't have to do this here." I stayed standing. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I felt exposed anyway. Part of me wanted to apologize just to make it stop. Part of me wanted to say I was tired, that I didn't mean it, that we could talk later. That reflex made me sick. I came so close to folding it scared me. I'd stayed quiet for so long that just standing up felt like an offense. David closed the folder. "This meeting is over." They stood up at the same time. My daughter-in-law grabbed her bag too hard. My son wouldn't look at me. They left without another word. They stormed out. But they left something behind. The voicemail came in at 7:46 p.m. on a Tuesday right after sunset. I was rinsing dishes when the landline blinked. I let it go to the machine. The tone beeped. Then his voice filled the kitchen flat, rehearsed. "If you cut us off, you're cutting off your future. Think about that." No mom, no pause, just that. I walked outside and sat on the porch step. Didn't cry, didn't move, just sat. The plastic under my leg was still warm from the day. I stayed there until it cooled. If future means threats, what was the present supposed to be? And if I raised him? How did we end up here? Marcy, my old neighbor, walked by with her dog and said, "You all right?" I didn't answer. She didn't press, just nodded and kept walking. Inside, I replayed the voicemail once, then hit the button to save it. The machine blinked archive. Then I picked up my phone and deleted his number from my contacts. You don't forget your child's number, but I didn't want it lighting up my screen anymore. It's not the loss that hurts, it's realizing how little they thought you'd fight. He always thought I wouldn't. Maybe I didn't for too long. I told myself I was keeping peace. I told myself she'd get better. That love meant silence. But I wasn't silent now. Still, I hated the small part of me that flinched, the one that heard his voice and still felt 12 excuses rise in my throat. The message sat on the machine like a line in the sand, not a conversation, a warning. That night, I watched the security footage one last time. Then I made coffee. It was 6:08 a.m. on July 2nd. The house was quiet, no footsteps, no fake coughs, no whispered complaints about the lights being too bright. I stood in the kitchen, poured one scoop of coffee grounds, and let the machine hum. The smell hit first. I hadn't smelled that exact brand in 5 years. She said it upset her stomach. I believed her. I set the mug down on the windowsill carefully, like it might break. It didn't. It just sat there, solid, warm mine. A blue jay landed on the fence. I watched it hop head tilted like it knew I was watching. No one grabbed the remote. No one adjusted the thermostat. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel borrowed. I opened my file drawer, pulled out the deed, and slid it across the table to the notary. Angela. My lawyer's assistant flipped through it. Clause 12 is in place. They can't touch this. She didn't say it with flair, just fact. I nodded. Signed. Done. If they really loved me, why would they need control? And if this was a family, why did peace only arrive after they left? I used to believe the worst thing was being alone. But sitting in that chair watching the yard wake up, I realized being used in your own home is lonelier. I kept thinking about how long I'd let it go on, how I'd confused being needed with being loved, and how through it all, I stayed quiet when I should have spoken. Sometimes peace isn't forgiveness, it's boundaries with a locked gate. I didn't tell them. I just stopped answering the door.